This is the Renegade Teacher blasting out with another transmission. Folks, I am super happy to have you on board tonight as we round out the week, approaching our weekend, as we continue our journey through the stars, looking for that rationality in education. This is going to be a good one. Folks, I wanted to, as I refocused for the end of the week rant, I wanted to revisit one of the topics that will probably never go away in terms of the scope of this channel. We're gonna continually look at this issue, and we may run up against a point tonight where we have to cut it off and continue in future rants along this same vein. So the thing I want to bring to you first tonight is an article that was posted on, let's see, it's called the Advocate, like the advocate, but Advocate, and the web address is the edadvocate.org, and the article title is 3 Responsibilities Teachers Have, in parentheses, besides teaching. And this is an older article from November of 2015, but I want to read a bit of it to you here before we get into a little bit deeper look at something this will kind of naturally lead us towards. So just opening up the article here, it's not very long, but I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. It says, we see teachers as people with a set of responsibilities, including asking questions, evaluating students, lecturing, praising or critiquing, assigning homework, supervising and grading examinations, and at the end of the semester or year, grading each student. But teaching involves a lot more than just performing a set of actions in front of students. A significant portion of a teacher's work in the classroom is mental. Teachers will need to provide solutions to problems as they arise. Generally, our understanding of teaching is based on our recollection of our teachers in school. Our memories lead us to conclude that we know what teaching is and what teachers do. I'll add this as well. It says, teaching is a science and an art that requires teachers to continually examine and modify lessons based on the experiences of their students. He goes on here to, the author goes on to talk about a bit about a book. I'm not going to get into that part of it right now, but the 3 responsibilities that they highlight in this article are that the teacher is a role model for the students, and they kind of extrapolate on that idea, expand on it. Number 2, they have as the teacher as a spontaneous problem solver. It says teachers must be able to respond rapidly and appropriately to completely unpredictable situations that may occur in the classroom. Let's see here, number 3, and again, you should read the whole article. It's not very long, but I don't want to focus on it too much and it draw away from the main attraction here tonight. Number 3, though, the teacher as a reflective thinker. It says teaching has an element that cannot be defined or described. It can only be experienced. You will gradually develop your ability to listen to students and to communicate to your students a genuine sense of concern for their education. How you show this concern will depend on your personality and your strengths, as well as your educational background. It says teachers' thought processes are influenced by a wide variety of factors such as the curriculum, the community, the school principal, and personal theories and beliefs about teaching. I'll stop there with the article, but it got me thinking. It got me thinking a lot about the responsibilities and the time involved for teachers. You know, in education, we hear an awful lot about data and making things quantifiable. And I thought that it would be interesting to do a thought experiment. And I broke out the calculator a bit here, and I want to kind of have put you as the listener into a situation here. So bear with me, strap in. This may be a little different than the stuff you're used to from me. But I want you to imagine as a teacher that you assign an assignment to students. We're just going to say 18 questions or problems, depending on the subject matter. And these questions are Bloom's taxonomy levels, like the mid-range, like application, analysis, most of it application, on the very high end, some analysis questions or problems. And if you look at it from a depth of knowledge level, we're talking about something like levels 2 and 3, where we don't have any simple recall involved in this assignment, and we also don't have any level 5 extended thinking. So these questions are more in the 2 to 3 zone in the skills and concepts, and then on the top end the strategic thinking. So maybe when you assign this assignment to your students, we'll say that you do 3 example questions or problems, maybe on the board, or in a presentation or whatever, and the students are instructed to copy down the examples, encouraged to ask questions about anything that they don't understand. And let's just say, just for the fact of doing a conservative quantification of what we want to look at tonight, we'll say that the class is engaged, and that you're able to render an additional 3 good questions that lead to you doing 3 additional examples to support the specific learner needs that you have in the room at the time. So that leaves us with 12 questions on the assignment, the paper that you've given these students, and you assign those this is at the end of the class, right after the content delivery portion. All these examples are being done toward the end of class, and the remaining 12 questions are homework for the students to be able to attempt to perform the skill that they learned in class outside of class time, after their brain has relaxed from the information, so that they can get some kind of metacognition about how their ability level stands on the given topic, so that they can accurately self-assess themselves on how to proceed toward being prepared for an assessment. So let's just say that the day goes by, then the students come in the next day or whenever, and they turn in the assignment, and you go on about performing your duties that day, and whenever you get to grade it, let's move on to grading the homework. And this is a huge, this one is a hot button for me, folks. I tend to get kind of mad here when I think about how many teachers, either by choice or by force, have to grade things simply based on completion. It should be really illegal for any assignment to be graded based on completion, though I can tell you now there's no way to be a teacher and not do at least some of that. Just simply, the students having some answer on an assignment being worth something, or in a lot of cases being the only thing required, because the teachers are under so much pressure from so many different angles that they have to assess their students, at least in some part, using that completion-only method. But these questions, though, are not something that can be assessed using the completion method. The questions that you have assigned the students here tonight are levels, DOK levels 2 and 3, Bloom's taxonomy, application, and analysis. These things need to be looked at to see if they have been done correctly. They have multiple steps and things that are required to get full credit. So we're going to say a conservative estimate that you spend 4 seconds per question analyzing what your students have written on these 12 remaining homework questions. Right? So there's no matching, there's no true or false, there's no multiple choice. These things are things that you need to look at. The students have been expected to perform steps modeled to them via examples in the classroom. So we look at the quantification of this as 4 seconds times 12 questions per student, which would be 48 seconds per student, so 48 seconds per paper. However, as you look at what your students have turned in, you realize that many of the students, more than not, do not have the examples written down correctly. They did not follow instructions. So instead of looking at 12 questions per student, you're going to now need to look at all 18 of them. Because if anything should be done correctly on the paper, it should be the examples. So we have to look at 4 seconds times 18 questions. This is 72 seconds per student. And we're going to multiply that by a very conservative 80 students, which, for many teachers, that could be a laughably low number. For others, it may be very excessive. But it seems to me to be a mid-range, good mid-range figure. And if we look at multiplying those 72 seconds of grading time per paper by 80 students, we get 5,760 seconds divided by 60 gives us 96 minutes, folks, of pure grading time. And this 96 minutes, you have to keep in mind, this is if grading is happening at 100% efficiency. This is as if a robot was grading the papers, looking at each question for 4 seconds to analyze all the needed steps and components that should be there. This does not include any of the time that is going to be spent trying to read poor handwriting or figure out whose paper belongs to who, because 3 or 4 of the students, sometimes more, failed to write their name on the paper. So, if you look at adding another 20% of random distractions and as your eyes glaze over once or twice throughout grading this assignment as you ponder your career choice, it ends up being more like 115 minutes if you add that 20%. So, folks, this is one paper, this is one assignment. And consider this as well in the thought experiment as you try to as we all try to wrap our minds around quantifying something like this. Several students didn't turn the problems in to you. So if you grade the assignment and return it to students in a timely manner, any slackers are going to instantly attempt to copy those answers from those graded papers that you took the time to give feedback on, and they're going to attempt to turn it in late. And I know there's going to be people that say, well, don't accept late work. A lot of parents complain about teachers accepting late work. If you don't realize this, I'll be the one to tell you it's not the teacher's choice whether or not to accept late work. Folks, teachers have been stripped of that power. You are remembering teachers the way that they used to have autonomy and not the way that it is now. Because as soon as you attempt to enforce a policy like a 0 if something isn't turned in on time, the game is over. You are going to wake up a complete shitstorm of problems from parents and administrators, and especially if it affects any special education students of any magnitude or severity. So I mean, you can't do away with accepting late work for partial credit. So the system is immediately going to get hacked by people who copy anything that's passed back in a timely manner. Keep in mind, as you put the grades in for this assignment into the grading system, that also will induce a flood of late work, causing you to need to spend even more time going back and grading these other students' papers, putting them in the computer a second time, deducting the late points, justifying that, making sure you document why the deduction was there. This is incredible. When you stop and try to quantify something like this, it is nauseating. And this is why teachers are losing their minds. Think about this too. The students that most need to have the graded work with the feedback on it in their hand to study for an assessment or something like that, those oftentimes are the students who are permitted to turn the work in late before a test, so they don't have the paper to study. And again, this is all looking just at one paper, folks. One paper from one day of 1 week. This does not include any exams, any quizzes. This doesn't include any exit slips or bell work or tracking anything like tardies or absences or makeup work or discipline or accommodations for IEPs and 504 plans or documenting anything like parent contacts or any accommodations for things like English language learners, the ELLs that we have in our classrooms. This doesn't look at any of the time spent planning or any of the instructional delivery or any of the teacher duties. This is simply one paper, and we're looking at over 100 minutes of time being used to actually assess whether or not students can operate at a DOK level 2 to 3, at a mid-range Bloom's taxonomy level. This is a conservative estimate, and it is head-spinning. Can you imagine the quantification of depth of knowledge level 5? We need to think about this, folks, because Bloom's taxonomy going full throttle, Bloom's maxonomy. If we are going to do this, we are going to quantify it, folks. Coming soon on the channel, we are going to quantitatively prove that the mandate on teachers is not only unrealistic, but it is grounds for legal action on a massive scale. I'm going to have to reel it in for tonight, folks. I'm going to need to put on the cuff and take a breather. As we roll into the weekend here, I will be passing out of range once again as I pass through the dark side of the moon. I look forward to reestablishing a connection with you next week. As always, stay honest, stay safe, and this is the Renegade Teacher checking out.